the day innocence died. The galaxy had known peace for 1,000 years. At least, that was what the textbooks said. The Galactic Commonwealth stretched across 847 star systems, home to 52 species who lived under laws written by the first civilizations to reach the stars. They called it harmony. They called it progress. They called it the natural order of things. Humanity had joined this order 50 years ago. Earth emerged from its solar system with open hands and hopeful hearts. The Commonwealth welcomed them, but with conditions. Humans were young. Humans were primitive. Humans needed to prove they could be civilized. So humanity proved it. They signed every treaty placed before them. They dismantled their most powerful weapons. They accepted trade agreements that favored older species. They smiled when insults came and called it diplomacy. For 50 years, Earth followed every rule, respected every custom, and believed that patience would earn them respect. Admiral Chenwei had built his entire career on that belief. He commanded the United Earth Defense Fleet, a collection of ships designed more for show than combat. Sleek vessels with minimal weapons, painted white to signal peaceful intentions. In 35 years of service, Chen had never fired a shot in anger. He was proud of this record. He told young officers that restraint was the highest form of strength. On the morning of March 15, 2247, Chen was reviewing supply reports aboard his flagship, the UES Harmony. His small fleet patrolled the outer edges of human-controlled space, running standard exercises near the New Haven colony. It was routine work. Boring work. Safe work. New Haven was humanity's pride. Established 20 years earlier on a world the Commonwealth had deemed worthless, the colony had bloomed into something magnificent. Green valleys stretched between crystal rivers. Cities rose with architecture that blended human creativity with alien engineering principles. Schools taught children in 15 languages. Markets sold goods from 100 worlds. 3.8 million people called New Haven home. Farmers who grew food that fed 6 systems. Artists whose work hung in galleries across the Commonwealth. Scientists conducting research that advanced understanding for all species. Children who had never seen Earth but carried humanity's dreams in their hearts. The Crothax Dominion had requested a diplomatic visit. They were a warrior species, tall and scaled, with eyes like chips of amber. They held significant power in the Commonwealth, sitting on the High Council. Their request seemed ordinary. Cultural exchange. Trade discussions. The building of relationships between old power and new member. New Haven's governor accepted with enthusiasm. Preparations took weeks. The colonists cleaned their streets, prepared feasts, organized concerts and exhibitions. Children practiced speeches in the Crothax language. Everyone was excited. This was recognition. This was acceptance. This was what 50 years of patience had earned. The Crothax arrived with 32 warships. Military vessels, not diplomatic cruisers. This should have been a warning. But the Commonwealth had protocols. Warrior species traveled with escorts. It was their way. The colonists saw the ships and felt safe. Such powerful allies would protect them. The first missiles struck at dawn. No warning. No declaration. No mercy. Crothax warships opened fire on population centers with weapons designed to kill efficiently. Plasma bombardment turned city blocks into molten glass. Kinetic strikes punched through bunkers where families had taken shelter. Fusion bombs vaporized entire districts in seconds. The colonists tried to flee. Shuttles launched toward orbit, packed with children and elderly. The Crothax shot them down like practice targets. Every single one. Escape pods were hunted. Ships attempting to broadcast distress signals were eliminated. The Crothax had positioned their fleet in a perfect net. Nothing would leave this world alive. Communication arrays were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. New Haven's defense satellites, minimal by design according to Commonwealth regulations, lasted less than 5 minutes. The colony's small security force fought with whatever weapons they could find. Hunting rifles. Mining equipment. Farming tools. They died defending people who had no chance of survival. Admiral Chen received a fragment of the distress signal 4 hours into the attack. Just seconds of audio before the transmission cut out. Screaming. Explosions. A woman's voice begging someone to save her daughter. Then silence. Chen ordered his fleet to New Haven at maximum speed. The journey would take 31 hours. His ships pushed their engines beyond recommended limits. Crews prayed. Some wept. Chen stood on the bridge and watched the clock, knowing with growing certainty that they would arrive too late. The Crothax took 8 hours to kill 3.8 million people. They were thorough. Orbital bombardment destroyed every city, every town, every farming settlement. Ground forces descended to eliminate survivors hiding in wilderness areas. Automated drones hunted anyone who fled underground. The Crothax recorded everything. When Chen's fleet arrived, New Haven was gone. The blue-green world had turned brown and black. Smoke covered entire continents. Debris filled orbit, the shattered remains of civilian ships and stations. Bodies floated in the void, frozen in their final moments. Chen saw a child's toy drifting past his viewport, a stuffed animal from Earth. The Krothaks had left a message buoy in high orbit. Chen retrieved it, though part of him knew he should not. The message contained full footage of the massacre, edited and packaged like entertainment. City by city, the Krothaks showed their work. They showed families being hunted. They showed children crying for parents who were already dead. They showed the moment when the last human on New Haven stopped breathing. The message ended with a statement in perfect English. The Krothaks announced that this was a demonstration. Humanity had grown too comfortable, too bold, too loud in Commonwealth councils. This was a reminder of where humans belonged in the galactic order. Prey species existed to serve predator species. Any who forgot this would share New Haven's fate. The Krothaks broadcast this message to every species in the Commonwealth. They wanted everyone to see. They wanted everyone to understand. Humans were weak. Humans were expendable. Humans could be slaughtered without consequence. Chen ordered his crew to begin recovery operations. Every body would be brought home. Every single one. His people worked in shifts, retrieving corpses from orbit and from the burned surface below. They worked in silence, their faces hard, their eyes empty. Some crew members found their own family members among the dead. Chen watched his communications officer collapse after identifying her sister. On Earth, the news arrived like a hammer blow. Every screen on the planet showed the same images. The burning cities. The hunting of children. The Krothaks warriors celebrating their victory. 3.8 million names began scrolling across every display. It would take 16 days to show them all. The world stopped. Factories closed. Markets emptied. Transport systems went silent. People stood in their homes and watched the names scroll by. Parents held children who did not understand why adults were crying. Teachers tried to explain to students why their classmates from New Haven would never return from their holiday. Dr. Sarah Martinez watched from her laboratory in Geneva. She was a physicist who specialized in peaceful applications of quantum technology. Her brother had moved to New Haven 8 years ago with his family. 3 children. Twin girls aged 7 and a boy aged 10. Sarah had videos of them playing in their garden, showing her the flowers that grew in New Haven's rich soil. She watched the footage of their neighborhood being destroyed. She watched until she could not watch anymore. Then she walked to her lab and began calculating. Not for peaceful applications. For weapons. For devices that could make stars die. For technology that would make the Krothaks regret being born. Across Earth, the same transformation began. Scientists abandoned peaceful research. Engineers started designing warships. Doctors studied alien biology, looking for weaknesses. Artists created propaganda that stirred rage instead of joy. Humanity was changing, cell by cell, heart by heart. The Galactic Commonwealth held an emergency session. Representatives from all 52 species gathered to discuss the massacre. They expressed concern. They offered sympathy. They spoke of unfortunate escalations and the need for dialogue. They debated proper procedures for filing complaints. They discussed the importance of maintaining stability. Then they voted. The Krothaks' dominion faced no sanctions. No punishment. No consequences. The Commonwealth issued a statement calling the incident regrettable and encouraging both parties to seek peaceful resolution through proper diplomatic channels. They reminded humanity that violence only created more violence. They urged restraint and patience. Prime Minister Astrid Holm read the Commonwealth statement in her office overlooking Stockholm. She was 71 years old, a career diplomat who had spent 40 years building bridges between species. She had negotiated Earth's entry into the Commonwealth. She had signed every treaty with pride, believing civilization meant something. Believing the galaxy had rules that protected the innocent. Astrid looked at the statement and then at the live feed showing bodies being recovered from New Haven. She thought about her granddaughter who wanted to be a doctor on the frontier. She thought about 3.8 million people who had believed they were safe. She thought about 50 years of humanity following rules while predators did whatever they wanted. General James Okonkwo entered without knocking. He was the supreme commander of Earth's military, a position that had been largely ceremonial for decades. He placed a sealed folder on her desk. The folder was marked with a single word that made Astrid's hands shake. Tempest. She knew what Tempest contained. Weapons humanity had been forbidden to develop. Technology hidden in deep facilities. Ships designed for war, not peace. Plans that would transform Earth from a civilized member of the Commonwealth into something the galaxy had never seen before. Programs built in secret by people who had never trusted the smiling predators. Astrid had opposed these programs. She had argued they were unnecessary. She had believed in the Commonwealth's promise of protection. That belief was now ash, just like the cities of New Haven. She opened the folder and read for 3 hours. When she finished, the diplomat was gone. In her place sat something colder, harder, capable of terrible decisions. The United Earth Assembly convened within hours. Every nation's representative attended. The gallery filled with citizens who had traveled from across the world. Cameras broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system and beyond. Astrid stood at the podium and looked at her species. She spoke of 50 years. 50 years of following rules made by others. 50 years of dismantling weapons because the Commonwealth said humans were too dangerous. 50 years of accepting insults with grace. 50 years of believing civilization meant protection. 50 years of trust. She spoke of New Haven. Of the families who had built homes on a new world. Of the children who had learned to speak Crothaks as a gesture of friendship. Of 3.8 million souls who died believing the galaxy had laws that mattered. Then her voice changed. It became quiet. It became cold. It became something that made even generals feel afraid. She said that humanity was done. Done following rules only they obeyed. Done trusting species who watched them burn. Done being civilized in a galaxy where civilization was a lie. Earth formally withdrew from the Galactic Commonwealth. Every treaty was void. Every agreement was cancelled. Every diplomatic relationship was severed. Humanity would stand alone. Humanity would protect its own. And to the Crothaks Dominion, she had only this to say. We are done being cultured. Now you will learn what humans really are. The assembly voted. Every nation. Every representative. Unanimous. For the first time in human history, Earth spoke with one voice. Not for peace. For war. For justice. For rage that had been building for 50 years behind polite smiles. Ambassador Michael Torres was given the task of delivering Earth's withdrawal in person. He had represented humanity in the Commonwealth for 20 years. He had shaken hands with aliens who now celebrated dead children. He had smiled at species who called humans primitive. He had believed in the system. Michael walked into the Commonwealth Council chamber for the last time. 52 species watched him approach. Some looked curious. Some looked amused. The Crothaks delegation sat in the center, their scales gleaming, their amber eyes bright with satisfaction. Michael read the declaration. His voice did not shake. When he finished, he placed the document on the council floor and turned to leave. A Crothaks counselor called out to him. The alien said that humans were prey pretending to be predators. The galaxy had nothing to fear from a species that could not even protect its own children. Michael stopped walking. He turned slowly. The chamber fell completely silent. He looked at the Crothaks counselor and spoke very softly. He said that the Crothaks had made a mistake that could never be undone. He said they should prepare themselves, because humanity was about to teach them the difference between predators and apex predators. Then he walked out and never looked back. Behind him, something ancient stirred in human hearts. Something that had been sleeping since humanity first looked at stars and decided to be civilized. Something that remembered when humans were not the dominant species on their own world, and climbed to the top through blood and determination. The sleep was over. The pretending was done. And the galaxy was about to learn why humanity's greatest trick was convincing everyone else that they were harmless. The transformation. General James Okonkwo stood in a facility that did not exist on any official map. Deep beneath the Australian outback, 3 kilometers of rock and earth separated this place from the surface. The facility had been built 40 years ago by people who understood that peace was a luxury, not a guarantee. They had worked in absolute secrecy, hiding their work from the Commonwealth's inspection teams and even from most of Earth's governments. Project Tempest was their legacy. Now it was humanity's salvation. James walked through corridors lined with weapons that violated 17 different Commonwealth treaties. Plasma cannons that could boil atmosphere. Railguns that fired projectiles at percentages of light speed. Antimatter warheads small enough to fit in a briefcase but powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. Nanite swarms that could disassemble a warship molecule by molecule. Gravity weapons that could compress matter into singularities. The scientists who built these things had been called paranoid. They had been called warmongers. They had been investigated and nearly arrested multiple times. They had continued working because they understood what the politicians refused to see. In a galaxy of predators, being harmless was not safety. It was suicide. Dr. Marcus Chen met James at the main laboratory. Marcus was 53 years old, thin and tired-looking, with gray streaking his black hair. He had spent 30 years in this facility, designing weapons he hoped would never be used. His hands shook slightly as he presented the arsenal of Project Tempest. Marcus showed James the quantum disruptors. Devices that could tear holes in spacetime itself, creating localized disruptions that would shred anything nearby at the atomic level. He showed James the neural cascade generators, weapons that could broadcast frequencies that would shut down Crothack's nervous systems while leaving other species unharmed. He showed James the stellar igniters, missiles that could restart fusion reactions in dying stars or accelerate them in young ones. James asked one question. How long until these weapons could be deployed? Marcus did not hesitate. They were ready now. They had been ready for 20 years. They had just been waiting for permission. Permission was granted. Within hours, Project Tempest locations across Earth began activating. Facilities hidden in the depths of the Pacific Ocean opened their doors. Laboratories buried in Antarctic ice powered up equipment that had been maintained in silence. Launch sites disguised as mining operations prepared to reveal their true purpose. Earth's economy transformed overnight. Assembly lines that produced civilian vehicles retooled for military production. Shipyards that built cargo haulers began constructing warships with hulls made of materials the Commonwealth had never seen. Universities became research centers focused on a single goal, making humanity strong enough to survive in a galaxy that wanted them dead. The people volunteered by millions. Engineers who had designed peaceful infrastructure now calculated optimal firing solutions. Programmers who had created entertainment software wrote combat AI routines. Biologists who had studied alien life for scientific understanding now looked for biological vulnerabilities. Teachers became trainers. Artists became propagandists. Doctors became combat medics. Commander Sarah Okafor had been a shuttle pilot 6 months ago. She flew tourists between Earth and the Moon, showing them views of their home planet from space. She told them stories about the early days of space exploration. She had never fired a weapon in her life. Now she sat in the cockpit of something that had no official name yet. The pilots called it a Reaper. It was black as the void between stars and shaped like a blade. It moved faster than anything in the Commonwealth. Its weapons could punch through capital ship armor like paper. Its stealth systems made it invisible to every sensor humanity knew about. Sarah's squadron was called the First Strike Wing. 36 pilots, all volunteers, all trained to the edge of human endurance. They practiced maneuvers that would kill normal pilots through sheer G-force. They learned to think faster, react quicker, push harder than any enemy would expect. Their training took place in simulators and in real space, flying through asteroid fields at speeds that gave their instructors nightmares. Each pilot carried a data chip containing names from New Haven. Sarah's chip held 347 names. She had memorized every one. Before each training flight, she whispered them like a prayer. The dead would not be forgotten. The dead would be avenged. Dr. Marcuschen worked on a different kind of weapon in his laboratory. He studied Crothack's biology with cold focus. Every species had weaknesses. Pressure points in their evolution. Quirks in their biochemistry. Things that could be exploited. Marcus found many such things in the Crothacks. Their respiratory system was efficient but vulnerable to certain molecular structures. Their scales, which seemed impenetrable, had microscopic gaps that changed with temperature. Their vaunted strength came from muscle fibers that responded to specific neural patterns. Marcus catalogued every weakness. He designed weapons for each one. Aerosols that would make their lungs collapse. Thermite compounds that would exploit gaps in their armor. Neural disruptors tuned to frequencies that would paralyze their muscles. He worked 18 hours a day. He did not think about ethics. He did not question the morality of designing weapons meant to kill as efficiently as possible. His younger cousin had lived on New Haven. She was 9 years old. Marcus had seen footage of her school being bombed. There was no room in his heart for mercy. Agent Yuki Tanaka specialized in a different kind of warfare. She was a shadow operative for Earth intelligence, trained in infiltration and information gathering. While the Commonwealth pretended humanity was harmless, Yuki had spent 20 years moving through alien societies, learning their secrets, mapping their weaknesses. She spoke 14 languages fluently. She could alter her appearance to blend into almost any environment. She was very good at being invisible. Yuki had been on the Crothack's home world when New Haven died. She had watched their people celebrate in the streets. She had seen them display footage of the massacre like it was entertainment. She had smiled and nodded and played her role while memorizing every detail. Now she sat in a secure facility on Earth and shared everything she knew. Crothack's military protocols. Fleet positions. Supply routes. Communication systems. Political structures. Names of commanders and their personal habits. Locations of fuel depots and weapons facilities. Gaps in their defensive networks. The Crothacks had made a fatal mistake. They had never considered that the prey might be studying them. They had been arrogant, open, careless with information. Yuki had collected it all. Now humanity would use it to tear them apart. Admiral Chenwei watched his fleet grow. New ships arrived every week from orbital yards that worked around the clock. The UES Harmony had been rebuilt and renamed the UES Reckoning. Its hull was no longer white but black. Its weapons were no longer minimal but overwhelming. Chen stood on its bridge and barely recognized it. His fleet had grown from 12 peaceful patrol ships to 300 warships designed for a single purpose. Destroyers that could eliminate entire squadrons. Cruisers that carried enough firepower to level cities from orbit. Carriers that launched wings of Reaper-class fighters. Dreadnoughts that could stand against anything the Krothaks could field. And at the center, the crown jewel of human engineering, the UES Nemesis. The Nemesis was 5 kilometers long, the largest warship ever built by human hands. Its construction had taken 8 months, working with prefabricated components hidden in storage for decades. Its reactor generated enough power to run a small city. Its primary weapon was a spinal-mounted mass driver that could accelerate projectiles to 30% light speed. Its secondary weapons included plasma batteries, missile pods, point defense networks, and systems that Marcus Chen had designed specifically to kill Krothaks. Chen named his command staff. Each one had lost someone at New Haven. His tactical officer's wife had been a teacher there. His navigation officer's parents had retired to the colony. His communications officer's entire extended family, 15 people, had been visiting when the attack came. These were not people seeking glory. They were people seeking justice, and they would not stop until they had it. 6 months after the massacre, humanity struck. The Krothaks had expected something. They had positioned their fleets at the borders of former human space, ready to crush any retaliation. Their admirals were confident. Humans were weak. Humans were emotional. Humans would attack in rage and die in fire. The attack did not come from the borders. Yuki Tanaka had identified 23 critical targets scattered throughout Krothaks territory. Military shipyards. Fuel depots. Communication hubs. Supply stations. Command centers. Research facilities. Each one was vital to Krothaks' military operations. Each one was lightly defended because they were deep in Krothaks space, far from any threat. The Krothaks had never imagined an enemy could strike so far behind their lines. They were wrong. Human fleets appeared simultaneously at all 23 targets. They came out of quantum jump points with precision that stunned Krothaks' defenders. No warning. No declaration. No mercy. Just silent black ships emerging from nowhere with weapons already firing. The Krothaks' fuel depot at Varantis Prime supplied 40% of their military fleet. It was defended by 60 warships and 15,000 soldiers. Commander Sarah Okafor led the first strike wing against it. 36 Reaper-class fighters against overwhelming odds. The Reapers moved like nothing the Krothaks had ever encountered. They flew in patterns that seemed impossible, weaving through defensive fire with movements too precise to be organic. The Krothaks fired missiles. The Reapers dodged them. The Krothaks fired plasma. The Reapers slipped between the beams. The Krothaks scrambled their own fighters. Sarah's wing tore through them like sharks through fish. They attached quantum disruptors to the fuel depot's primary tanks. When they flew clear and activated the devices, the depot did not simply explode. It ceased to exist. Matter converted to energy in a chain reaction that consumed the entire facility and every ship within 10,000 kilometers. The light was visible from 4 star systems away. At the Krothaks shipyards of Draymok, Admiral Chen led a different kind of assault. The UES Nemesis jumped into the system with 50 escort ships. The shipyard was building the next generation of Krothaks dreadnoughts. 10 massive vessels, each one designed to enforce Krothaks' dominance for the next century. They would never be completed. The Nemesis opened fire with its main gun. The projectile crossed the distance to the shipyard in seconds, traveling at 90,000 kilometers per second. When it hit, the kinetic energy was equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The first dreadnought split in half. The Nemesis fired again. And again. And again. Each shot was perfectly placed, perfectly timed. Chen's gunners worked with mechanical precision, destroying years of construction work in minutes. Krothaks' defenders tried to stop them. Their warships engaged Chen's escorts. They found themselves fighting ships that did not follow Commonwealth combat doctrines. Human vessels did not stand and trade fire. They moved constantly, using the shipyard's own structures as cover. They fired and relocated. They attacked from unexpected angles. They used weapons the Krothaks had never seen before. Neural cascade generators shut down Krothaks' crew members mid-battle, leaving their ships drifting and helpless. Nanite swarms ate through armor plating from the inside. Gravity pulse weapons crushed smaller vessels into balls of twisted metal. The Krothaks' defenders died confused, unable to understand how prey species could fight like this. Chen lost 18 ships. He mourned their crews. Then he ordered his fleet to jump to the next target. There was no time for grief. There was only the mission. At Communication Hub Theta 7, Yuki led a ground assault. Her team of 50 commandos wore Reaper armor, powered suits that made them faster and stronger than any Crothax warrior. They infiltrated the facility while the space battle raged above. The Crothax guards never saw them coming. Yuki moved through the corridors like death itself. Her team killed every defender in absolute silence. No alarms. No warnings. Just corpses left in their wake. She reached the central computer and plugged in her infiltration kit. The virus she uploaded would spread through every connected Crothax system. It would corrupt navigation data. It would delete supply records. It would introduce errors into targeting systems. It would make the Crothax military blind and confused. Before leaving, Yuki recorded a message. She left it playing on every screen in the facility. It was simple. Just 3 words, repeated over and over. We remember New Haven. The campaign lasted 3 months. Humanity did not try to conquer Crothax territory. They did not want land or resources. They wanted to break the machine that had killed their children. Admiral Chen led his fleet in a war of annihilation. He struck supply lines until Crothax ships ran out of fuel in deep space. He destroyed communication relays until Crothax commanders could not coordinate their forces. He turned their empire into isolated pockets of confusion and fear. The Crothax tried to counterattack. They sent their remaining fleets toward Earth, hoping to end the war with one devastating blow. They expected to find a defended home world. They found a trap. Humanity had known they would come. Yuki's intelligence had predicted the attack. Chen had positioned his entire fleet in Earth's solar system, waiting in the darkness beyond sensor range. When the Crothax arrived, they found themselves surrounded. 300 human warships emerged from hiding, cutting off every escape route. The Battle of Seoul lasted 5 days. 800 Crothax vessels against everything humanity had built. It was supposed to be the end of human civilization. It became the end of Crothax military power. Commander Sarah Okafor flew her Reaper through the chaos of battle. She had lost 12 pilots from her wing over the past months. She carried their names along with the names from New Haven. She whispered them all as she fired her weapons. Each kill was for the dead. Each destroyed enemy ship was justice delivered. The Crothax flagship was the Eternal Dominance, commanded by Admiral Kravish. He was the one who had ordered the attack on New Haven. Yuki had confirmed it. Chen had studied his face. Sarah had dreamed of killing him. Now the Eternal Dominance drifted in space, its engines destroyed, its weapons offline, its hull breached in 100 places. Chen ordered it captured, not destroyed. Human boarding teams cut their way inside. They fought through corridors filled with dying Crothax warriors. They reached the command deck and found Admiral Kravish trying to activate the ship's self-destruct. They stopped him. They brought him aboard the UES Reckoning in chains. Chen stood before the Crothax admiral in the Reckoning's holding cell. Kravish was wounded, his scales cracked, his amber eyes dimmed. But he still had pride. He still had arrogance. He told Chen that humanity had won nothing. The galaxy would turn against them. Other species would unite to destroy the humans who broke the peace. Chen listened without expression. Then he spoke very softly. He told Kravish that humanity did not care what the galaxy thought. He told him that humans had tried being civilized and it had cost them 3.8 million lives. He told him that Earth was done pretending to be harmless. He showed Kravish footage of the past 3 months. The destroyed depots. The shattered shipyards. The burning worlds of the Crothax Empire. He showed him the names of every Crothax military officer humanity had killed. He showed him data proving that Crothax military capacity had been reduced by 73%. He showed him projections indicating that the Crothax would never again threaten anyone. Then Chen delivered his final message. He told Kravish that he would be returned to his people. He would tell them what happened when they made humanity angry. He would tell them that humans were not prey. He would tell them that the galaxy's rules no longer applied to Earth. And if the Crothax ever threatened humanity again, there would be no battle, no war, no mercy. There would only be extinction. Kravish was released at the edge of Crothax space. He returned to his home world and delivered Chen's message. The Crothax High Command listened. They looked at their shattered fleet. They looked at their burning territories. They looked at projections of what would happen if they continued fighting. For the first time in their history, the Crothax sued for peace. Humanity refused. Earth sent a single message in response. There would be no peace. There would be a ceasefire. The Crothax would surrender all territories taken from other species in the past century. They would reduce their military to defense-only forces. They would pay reparations to every species they had harmed. They would accept monitoring from human observers. Or humanity would finish what it started. The Krothaks accepted. They had no choice. The Galactic Commonwealth watched in shock. In 6 months, humanity had gone from victim to victor. They had defeated a species that had dominated the galaxy for centuries. They had done it with weapons and tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. They had done it with a cold efficiency that terrified every observer. Other species began asking questions. Where had these weapons come from? How had humans built such a fleet so quickly? What else was Earth hiding? The answers frightened them. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. While smiling and signing treaties, they had been building an arsenal in secret. While playing the role of harmless newcomers, they had been planning for war. The prey had always been predators. They had just been waiting for an excuse to stop pretending. Earth sent a message to every species in the galaxy. It was broadcast on every frequency, transmitted to every world. Prime Minister Astrid Holm delivered it personally. Her words were simple. Humanity had tried civilization. Humanity had followed the rules. Humanity had believed in the Commonwealth's promise of protection. That belief had died with New Haven. Earth would never again trust the galaxy to keep them safe. Earth would never again disarm because others demanded it. Earth would never again smile while predators planned their destruction. The message ended with a warning. Any species that threatened humanity would face the same fate as the Krothaks. Any species that harmed human civilians would learn what it meant to awaken Earth's rage. The galaxy could accept humanity as equals, or it could learn why humans had dominated their own world despite being weaker than most of its predators. The choice was theirs. But the pretending was over. Humanity was done being cultured. And the galaxy would never be the same.